You ever felt that inexplicable presence in an empty room? That sudden chill when you walk past certain places? That lingering feeling that someone who's gone is still around, watching, waiting? In every culture, since time immemorial, there have been accounts of souls caught between two worlds, not fully here, not completely on the other side. Today, we're diving into the mystery of these spirits stuck on the threshold, unable to complete their journey into the spiritual realm. What you discover in the next few minutes might completely change your outlook on life, death, and what lies beyond the veil that separates these two realities. If this topic intrigues you as much as it does me, don't forget to like this video right now and subscribe to the channel for more content that expands our awareness of the mysteries of existence. Hit the bell so you'll be notified every time new videos drop. Death, that old acquaintance we'll all meet one day, isn't the end. It's a passage. In almost every spiritual tradition, there's the understanding that consciousness goes on after the physical body stops working. Hinduism, Buddhism, Spiritism, Shamanism, esoteric Christianity, all these paths, although with different perspectives, agree that there's a transition process. But what happens when that process is interrupted? When a soul, for reasons we'll explore today, gets stuck in an in-between state? We're not just talking about ghosts like in Hollywood movies with chains and white sheets. The reality is much deeper and more complex. We're talking about consciousnesses that, for various reasons, haven't finished their natural cycle of transition. Souls that remain attached to the physical plane, often not even understanding that they no longer have a material body. Others do understand their situation, but something keeps them stuck, like a bird refusing to fly even when its cage is open. Imagine for a moment, you just left your physical body. At first, there might be confusion. Maybe you don't immediately grasp what happened. You see doctors trying to revive you, family members crying, but no one responds when you speak. You try to touch objects, but your hand passes right through them. There's a strange lightness, a different clarity to everything you see. And then, in the distance, a soft light begins to form. Familiar voices seem to call out. There's a path ahead, a feeling of peace, and a return to something greater. But not everyone follows that light. For some, it's like waking up in a lucid dream, where everything seems the same, yet something is fundamentally different. The colors are either more vibrant or perhaps duller. Time flows in a weird way, and there's a constant feeling that something needs to be done, something unfinished. Like a movie that gets cut off before the end, leaving a sense of incompleteness that lingers and nags. What makes a soul hesitate on this threshold? Why do some consciousnesses seem anchored to the material world even after physical death? One of the most powerful factors is earthly attachments, emotional bonds so strong they turn into energetic ropes that keep the soul tied to the physical dimension. Think about the mother who leaves suddenly, leaving behind small children. Who's going to take care of them? She wonders in despair. The pure and intense maternal love can turn into an anchor that holds her back from moving forward. Or the businessman who spent decades building his empire, his identity completely merged with his material achievements. When the body fails, the mind still clings to the office, to the businesses, to the decisions that still need to be made. Then there are those who leave with unfulfilled promises. The groom who swore he'd come back from the war and never did. The artist who left her masterpiece unfinished. The son who didn't have time to ask his father for forgiveness before a fatal accident. These emotional loose ends create a weight, a gravity that pulls the soul back to the physical plane, as if it were tied to an elastic band that always snaps it back when it tries to move away. And we can't forget material attachments. The farmer who can't let go of his land, the collector obsessed with his belongings, the miser who hid his treasure and can't part with it, even after death. Stories of ghosts guarding treasures aren't just folklore. They represent a psychological and spiritual truth about how our attachments can transcend even the barrier of death. Have you ever wondered what could keep you tied to this world even after your body no longer exists? What bonds would be so strong as to stop your soul from following its natural path? Another powerful factor that keeps souls stuck on the threshold is the fear of judgment. No matter the spiritual tradition we were raised in, there's a deep-rooted worry about what awaits us after death. Are we going to be judged for our actions? Is there some sort of cosmic settling of scores? Many souls, burdened by guilt for things they did while alive, would rather wander in limbo than face what they believe is an inevitable sentence. Think of the soldier carrying the burden of lives taken during conflicts, or the person who deeply betrayed someone they loved, or that person who, in a moment of anger or carelessness, caused a fatal accident. Guilt is like a poison that eats away at the soul, creating a self-imposed prison that persists well beyond physical death. If I move forward, I'll have to face what I've done, the tormented soul thinks. And so it stays in the shadows, avoiding a judgment that, ironically, happens mostly within itself. It's not just the fear of divine punishment that paralyzes these souls. It's also the confrontation with their own conscience. Our true judge isn't in some celestial court. It's inside us. Freed from the distractions and defense mechanisms of the physical body, the soul faces, with crystal clear clarity, every choice and its impact. For some, this revelation is so devastating that they prefer to remain in denial, wandering between the planes, avoiding the light that would reveal not only the unconditional love waiting for them, but also the truth about themselves they're not yet ready to accept. The trauma of violent or unexpected deaths is another significant cause of stuck souls. When the transition is abrupt and traumatic, many consciousnesses go into a state of spiritual shock. Just as physical trauma can freeze a person in a dissociative state, the trauma of sudden death can freeze the soul in a time loop, constantly reliving its final moments, unable to process what happened. Consider the victim of a murder whose life was snatched away in the prime of youth, or the person who died in a catastrophic accident, not even given time to understand what was happening. These souls often remain at the site of the tragedy, as if trapped in a snapshot of that traumatic moment, repeating the same patterns, unable to accept or understand their new reality. Mediums and sensitive individuals often report encounters with these souls on old battlefields, in disaster zones, or in houses where violent crimes occurred. They are confused energies, often not fully aware of their condition, some not even realizing they no longer have a physical body. "I'm trying to go back home," some spirits say to mediums, not understanding that their home is now supposed to be somewhere else. In a case I witnessed personally, a medium was called to an old hospital where staff reported strange sounds and a sense of presence in the old surgical center. There, she encountered the consciousness of a young doctor who had died during surgery when the hospital was bombed in World War II. For decades, he continued operating on invisible patients, trapped in his last moment of life, feeling responsible for saving those under his care when he died. Our emotions not only create our reality while we're alive, they also shape our experience after death. And here we come to another crucial factor that keeps souls stuck: the emotional ties with the living and the energy of unresolved mourning. The deep sorrow of those left behind creates a kind of magnetic field that can hinder the journey of the departed soul. When we cry inconsolably for someone, when we refuse to accept their departure, when we desperately beg them to come back, we are, without realizing it, creating energetic strings that can bind that spirit to earth. "Don't leave me," we cry in our despair. And the soul, hearing this anguished call, especially coming from Lei, someone who loves deeply, may feel unable to move on, becoming a hostage to the grief of the living. This is one of the reasons why funeral rituals exist in all cultures. They aren't just for comforting the living. They serve the spiritual purpose of giving permission for the departed to move on. When we say "go in peace," when we light candles that symbolize the light of the path, when we perform transition prayers, we are, in fact, cutting these energetic cords of emotional dependency and helping the soul break free. There are cases documented by spiritual researchers where children who died remain close to their mothers, deeply depressed by the loss, or spouses who can't let go of partners who attempted suicide after their passing. The compassion, love, and concern for the suffering of those left behind can be as intense as material attachment. How can I move toward the light when she's suffering so much because of me? These souls tied by bonds of love that transcend death ask. Paradoxically, These attachments prevent both the living and the departed from finding peace and moving on with their evolutionary paths. Between the physical world and higher spiritual realms are intermediate dimensions, what many traditions call the astral plane. These dimensions vibrate at frequencies different from our material reality, but they aren't yet the realms of light where souls naturally progress after completing their transition. These intermediate planes can become comfort zones for spirits that aren't ready to face the light. In these dimensions, souls can create illusory realities that mirror their beliefs, expectations, and desires. A devout atheist might find himself in a void that confirms his belief in the non-existence of continuity. A dogmatic religious person might create the paradise or hell that he believes he deserves. A materialist might find himself in an almost perfect simulation of his earthly life. These self-generated realities work like energetic bubbles that isolate the consciousness, letting it continue experiencing a distorted version of existence instead of moving on to higher dimensions. The most fascinating part is that even after physical death, spiritual free will remains intact. No soul is forced to go into the light or to move to higher dimensions against its will. Spiritual guides, mentors, and loved ones who have fully transitioned can offer help, but they never impose the journey. The final choice always belongs to the soul itself. This freedom of choice is as much a blessing as it is a challenge, because it allows consciousnesses to remain trapped for centuries in intermediate states out of sheer stubbornness or fear of the unknown. I once heard about a medium who, during a de-obsession work, encountered the consciousness of an old priest who had created his own celestial kingdom in the astral plane, where he continued to preach and maintain followers, other confused spirits who believed they were in the promised paradise. His attachment to religious power and his absolute conviction in his theological interpretations prevented him from seeing the higher dimensions that were inviting him to genuine evolution. "I'm already in heaven," he insisted, refusing to abandon the reality he had created and the status he enjoyed in it. Fortunately, even for the most stuck souls, there are paths to freedom. The first step for any spirit caught on the threshold is to recognize its own condition. This awakening often happens gradually, like someone slowly realizing they're dreaming inside a dream. Little signs start to accumulate, the perception that time flows differently, that people don't respond properly to your presence, that there's an unreal quality in the environments you encounter. For many souls, that realization comes through encounters with other consciousnesses that have already fully transitioned and return as guides or mentors. These loving presences bring a different vibe that contrasts with the density of the intermediate state. Like a perfect musical note resonating amid discord, these mentors awaken in the stuck soul a memory of its true nature and the spiritual home it naturally belongs to. Resolving emotional loose ends is another crucial aspect of liberation. Often, this happens through synchronistic events between the planes, when the soul somehow manages to communicate with the living, to ask for forgiveness, offer a final message of love, or guide loved ones to find something important they had left behind. There are countless accounts of dreams where the deceased appear to resolve unfinished business, or synchronistic events that seem orchestrated from the other side to complete unfinished cycles. Healing traumas might require an even deeper process. Spirits who specialize in healing, what we might call spiritual psychologists, work with these traumatized souls, helping them process and transcend the painful experiences that keep them stuck. In cases of violent deaths, this work can include a kind of guided reliving of the moment of death, but this time with the support needed to emotionally process the event and understand its larger meaning within the soul's journey. Letting go of attachments might be the most challenging step of all. To release what binds us, we first need to understand that our identity is much larger than our roles, possessions, and earthly relationships. The soul needs to recognize itself as an eternal consciousness that experienced a human life, rather than as a human identity trying to cling to life after death. This shift in perspective, from a temporary identity to eternal essence, is what finally allows those limiting bonds to dissolve. One particularly touching case was recounted by a medium who worked with the soul of a mother who who had remained on Earth for almost 2 decades, obsessively watching her child grow up without her. The moment of liberation came when she finally understood that she could love him more completely and powerfully from a higher dimension, sending him inspiration and love from a realm where time and space aren't barriers. I realized my attachment wasn't serving him, only my own fear, she communicated through the medium. True love knows when to let go. Compassion is the energy that permeates the entire process of liberating stuck souls. Not only the compassion of spiritual mentors and guides who tirelessly work to aid these confused consciousnesses, but also the self-compassion the soul develops as it comes to understand its own process. No judgment, no condemnation, just the deep understanding that every being follows its path at the pace its consciousness allows, and that there are no mistakes, only lessons in the grand cycle of spiritual evolution. This compassion also extends to the living. When our loved ones learn to replace desperate attachment with a love that sets free, when they transform the paralyzing pain of loss into a higher spiritual connection, they not only find peace for themselves, but also help the departed complete their journey. The heartfelt prayers, the loving acceptance, and the transition rituals performed with high intention create bridges of light that assist the soul in moving to higher dimensions. Once, a spiritual sage said, "Death isn't the opposite of life, it's a part of it." When we deeply understand this truth, we begin to see that the transition between planes is a natural process that can be helped by both those who leave and those who remain. Separation is just an illusion created by our limited perception of reality. In truth, we stay connected through bonds of love that transcend dimensions, but which, paradoxically, must be freed from their possessive quality so they can act as bridges rather than chains. And here we reach the crucial point of our journey today. How can we apply this knowledge in our lives while we still live in this physical plane? In the end, the way we live largely determines how we'll make our transition when the time comes. Every conscious choice we make today prepares us for that inevitable crossing we all face. Living with presence and intention might just be the first step. When we're fully engaged in our experience, processing emotions as they arise, resolving conflicts with honesty and courage, we're continuously releasing the energetic knots that might otherwise hold us back after physical death. It's no coincidence that ancient spiritual traditions recommend dying before you die. Not in the literal sense, but in the sense of letting go of identities, attachments, and fears while we still have the physical body to support us through these transformations. Cultivating a healthy relationship with impermanence also prepares us for this journey. Our modern culture tends to deny death, hide it away in hospitals and funeral homes, treat it as a taboo that must be avoided at all costs. This artificial distancing creates a fertile ground for fear and resistance when we finally face the transition. Older traditions, on the other hand, integrated the awareness of death into daily life, not in a morbid way, but as a reminder of the preciousness of every moment and the importance of living in alignment with deeper values. Mending relationships while we still can is another vital part of this preparation. Many souls remain stuck because of unsaid words, unspoken forgiveness, and unexpressed gratitude. There's profound wisdom in the old advice to not let the sun go down on your anger. Resolving emotional loose ends while we have the chance not only enriches our present life, but also paves the way for a smoother transition when the time comes. It's just as important to develop a spiritual understanding that goes beyond limiting dogmas about the afterlife. Concepts based on fear, like eternal punishment or absolute nothingness, can create energetic blockages that hinder the soul's natural transition. Seeking a broader perspective, one founded on unconditional love and the continuity of consciousness, paves the inner way to accept the light when it appears, without hesitations born of fear. And what about those who have already left? How can we help loved ones who might be stuck on the threshold? The answer might surprise you with its simplicity. Letting them go with love. When we transform our paralyzing grief into a loving memory that blesses and frees, we're essentially telling the departed soul, "It's okay to move on. We'll be all right. Your journey can continue." Lighting a candle with conscious intention, saying a transition prayer, visualizing your loved one wrapped in light and moving along their path. These seemingly simple gestures carry tremendous energetic power when done with genuine love and the intention to free. You don't have to be a medium or possess special psychic abilities to help in this process. The energy of pure love is the most powerful force in the universe, crossing all dimensions. By the end of this journey we've taken today, you can see that the threshold between worlds isn't just a state after death. It's also a metaphorical space we inhabit every day. We're always on the threshold between who we were and who we're becoming, between the known and the mystery, between attachment and liberation. The art of living fully and the art of dying consciously are really the same art, going with the inevitable transformations of existence. As the poet Rumi said centuries ago, beyond the notions of right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Perhaps that is the true destiny of all souls, not a static heaven or a permanent paradise, but a field of infinite possibilities where consciousness meets, free from judgments and limitations, to continue its eternal dance of evolution and expansion. I hope this exploration touched something deep in you, that it sparked not only intellectual curiosity, but also an intuition about your own eternal nature. If this content resonated with you, please leave a like, share it with someone who might benefit from these reflections, and join our community by subscribing to the channel. In the comments, tell me, have you ever had an experience that suggested the presence of a soul stuck between worlds? Or maybe you've felt a special connection with someone who passed on. Always remember, we are spiritual beings living a temporary human experience. Death is not the end of the journey, it's just a change in the way we travel. And when we truly understand that, both life and death turn into sacred adventures to be honored, respected, and ultimately embraced with an open heart. Until our next meeting on this journey of expanding consciousness, may the light that never fades within you continue to illuminate your path in this realm and in all realms of existence.